Joining us to talk about this is one of the co-authors of the bill, Congressman Ritchie Torres from New York, and he is joining us right now. Congressman Torres, welcome to TMZ Live.
Honored to be here.
Congressman, what are the prospects in the Senate? My understanding of this, it's a little dicier than the House.
I will claim to have no special insight into the Senate. I suspect that there's broad bipartisan support for the legislation, but the Senate is likely going to want to leave its own imprint on the bill. So my prediction is that there's going to be a compromise between the House and the Senate on how to move forward. And I want to be clear, the legislation is not a ban on TikTok. TikTok will continue to have the ability to operate under new ownership.
But if they don't switch ownership,
right, then it is banned.
You can't, then they'll prohibit the app from being sold in the United States, right?
If any company fails to comply with U.S. law, then those companies are no longer able to operate. So that's true of any law that we pass governing any company. I mean, TikTok is the most valuable social media platform in the world. There will be no shortage of tech companies that are eager to purchase TikTok.
Just to make it, if you can make it clear to the audience, it's not that the Chinese government is looking at the videos or the posts that people put up. That's not the information that you're concerned about. It goes much, much deeper than that, right?
There are two concerns. So first, there's a concern that the Chinese Communist Party will have unfettered access to the private information, the private data of 170 million Americans. So that's one concern. There's also a second concern.
That data, it goes beyond what you post. It's everything about you that they can find online because it's all attached to your TikTok account.
Exactly right. And the second concern is that, TikTok could be a tool for information warfare. The Chinese Communist Party could use TikTok, which it effectively controls, to conduct foreign influence operations against the United States, to interfere in our elections, to conduct cyber attacks. It's a means of information warfare against our country.
Congressman, you're a young, progressive guy who I think from the outside, people might think, oh, you're probably on TikTok, you probably are familiar with it, but you're not on TikTok. Why is that?
TikTok is a national security risk. TikTok is owned by ByteDance, which is subject to the control of the Chinese Communist Party. And ByteDance is required by law to report the information of 170 million American users to the Chinese Communist Party upon request. That is the national security law in China. And TikTok is not merely a social media platform, it's the leading news source for the next generation of Americans. And the fact that we as a country have put the leading news source for the most impressionable minds in our society in the hands of our leading foreign adversary, that's an act of self-sabotage. That is a threat to the national security of the United States. That would have been the equivalent of allowing a Soviet company to own ABC, NBC, and CBS during the height of the Cold War. It would have been unimaginable.
I want to ask you about something Donald Trump did recently that's frankly sort of alarming when it comes to this. There's a guy named Jeff Yes, I know you know about him, who's I think a 1% owner of TikTok. He's worth $33 billion. Trump has been opposed to TikTok for years. Apparently just did an about-face after meeting with him, especially given the financial issues Trump is facing. Do you find that alarming?
It comes as no shock to me. Donald Trump is the most dangerously unstable and unpredictable elected official, a politician in American politics. He was against TikTok before he was for it. And now he's completely reversed himself. The only principle that Donald Trump believes in is himself. Like, Trumpism is the only ideology of Donald Trump. He's a pathological, malignant narcissist, and nothing he says should be taken seriously.
Congressman, what would you say to the, what I've seen online, obviously, the TikTok creators who, frankly, a lot of them make their living this way. That's how they pay the bills. If this goes away, what would you say to them, the explanation for why this has to go away as you've described it?
Well, I want to be clear. I'm against a ban on TikTok, right? If the legislation had banned TikTok, then I would have voted against it because I have no interest in displacing 170 million people from a social media platform. I fully recognize that people depend on the social media platform for their livelihood, for their creative expression. The purpose of the bill is not to target the speech, the communicative and expressive activity that happens on TikTok. The purpose of the legislation is to target the foreign ownership of the platform. We want to ensure that it's owned either by an American company or a company in an allied country. That's the purpose of the legislation, and that can be done without displacing 170 million users.
If this passes, do you think the Chinese government will divest?
Or ByteDance will divest.
Or the ByteDance.
One and the same, but
yeah.
No one knows for sure what the Chinese government will do, but it's not in the interest of ByteDance. It would be in the interest of ByteDance to sell what is an enormously valuable social media platform. Like the notion that it's going to be impossible to sell strikes me as utterly implausible. Anyone would want to buy TikTok because it is a valuable social media platform. It's the most powerful in the world.
As you talk about this, especially, trying to influence our elections and invading the boundaries of the United States, it almost reminds me of that, that's the story that I learned as a little kid about the kid that was trying to plug the dam, and every time he did, another hole would spring, where you have an internet that consumes the world, and our boundaries are so artificial. At a point, to me at least, it seems improbable or even impossible to contain what you're talking about, which is to have elections that are free from any foreign influence. I just don't see how that is possible given the fact that the digital age doesn't have those boundary lines.
The Chinese Communist Party would never allow the United States to own the leading social media platform in China. It would never happen. And so why should we allow the Chinese Communist Party to own the leading social media platform in the United States? And you're right, there are concerns about social media in general. But even if we were to pass the perfect standards of data privacy governing every social media platform, that would not address the national security risk about the CCP controlling TikTok. Nothing short of a forced sale is going to address that national security risk.
That's fair.